For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Let's meet this week's achiever whose story will inspire you to push past your fears and soar. Well, hey, it's Denise Taylor, and I am so glad you tuned in to today's episode of Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness. You see, recently I hosted a DeniseTaylor.live virtual event. I brought on 5 great couples who shared wonderful stories and so much wisdom. I wanted them to be a part of Life, Love, and the Pursuit of Happiness. So I brought their live recordings to this platform. Today, we are going to spend time with the Smiths. What a beautiful couple. They have turned their misery into ministry. Now, imagine looking at your beautiful family portrait, and there are 5 beaming smiles with 3 beautiful children, yet your heart aches for the 4 heavenly angels that are not in the picture. That is the story of the Smiths, and they have turned their pain into purpose to honor the footprints on their heart. So take a listen and be blessed. Let healing come in. So I am excited. Now, do me the honors of introducing one another. I believe that there is something special that comes out when a husband can hear himself being introduced by his wife, and a wife can hear themselves being introduced by their husband. And so I want, ladies first. So Trebor, I want you to introduce us to your beautiful wife and help us understand and love her through your eyes.
So it's with great honor and privilege and pride that I say Demetrice Smith is my wife. She's my partner. She's my lover. She's the mother of every biological child that I have. She's the only woman that I've ever gotten pregnant. And for all the brothers in the house, but she is a champion for change, for justice. She's a first responder. She is a family nurse practitioner, certified nurse midwife, currently a doctoral student. She is the head administrator in our home for this virtual school. But most importantly, she is and will forever be the tall timber in the forest of tree.
All right, now I'm telling you. Okay, now the first thing that Demetrice told me, she told me how charismatic he was and how much of a charmer he was. He is laying it on thick, but you know what? I know that he means every last word that he said. He means it from the bottom of his heart, and that is what is beautiful. I didn't know him before. I knew Demetrice before. And so just becoming Facebook friends for this event has let me see just how much of a gentle giant he is and how much of a protector and family man he is. And so I know he meant every word, even though it just sounded like he was talking sweet. Okay. It sounded like he was talking sweet, but he did mean every word that he said. So Demetrice, please do the honor of introducing your handsome husband.
Like I should have went first. But I have the privilege and honor to be married to this handsome thing. And I affectionately call him my chocolate milk drop, as you can see. But Trebor Smith, there is no other like him. He is the original, for sure. And he is my ride or die, my protector. He is the most intelligent person I know. And he's one of my most favorite human beings on the planet. And he is vice president of a pharmaceutical company. He is a great provider for our household. He is the king of our household. And so he just leads us in so many different ways and avenues, and keeps us on our direct path. And he is, like you said, a gentle giant. What most people don't know, like he's like, well, you can see his superhero. I don't know if you can see it down here, but he's my superhero, and always there, especially in times of need. Like he shows up and shows out. When I was on bed rest, he was cooking like 5 meals a day. He is an awesome chef. He tries to downplay it, but he is wonderful. It's not a wonder that I'm like 300 pounds the way he cooks around here. But he's a chef. He's an entrepreneur. He is the love of my life, and Trebor Smith.
Oh, that is so priceless. You know what? It's great to hear you love on your husband and your wife with your words, and the things that you admire about them is typically what comes out when you have a chance to introduce one another. And so thank you for taking time to do that, and thank you for being with us tonight. Now, we've got a very tender subject, and I appreciate the fact that you made yourself available. Now, Trebor, tell me the moment you knew it was love, okay, and that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with Demetrice. Tell me about that moment.
So, to be honest with you, I think I knew the first time I laid eyes on her. But it wasn't until during the dating process and the courtship. One of my line brothers, the Honorable Abe Marshall Hudson Jr., state representative in the state of Mississippi, during the time when he and I were in between relationships and bachelors, we would encourage each other to be patient and to stay strong and to stay committed to your goals and your dreams. And I always had a dream of the type of woman I would marry because I knew the type of mother I wanted for my children. And so I remember one of the first times Demetrice came to my home, and I was a homeowner when we started dating, which I was a homeowner when we got married, which I think is God's plan for a man if he's going to truly take care of his wife. Okay. But, you know, because God established the family before the church, don't take me there, but, you know, but one of the first times she came to my home and visited, throughout the home, in cabinets, on mirrors, throughout the home, there were some notes. And these notes were meant to discourage and to challenge and to really provoke people that were visiting. And some of these notes were a list of about 5 characteristics that I had and that I wanted in a spouse. And if you open my refrigerator, you'd see the notes taped in the refrigerator. If you looked in a cabinet, it was taped in the cabinets. And Demetrice, unlike others who had visited, she was challenged, but willing to accept that challenge. And where others would look at that and think that my standards were too high and that I expected too much, I mean, she saw it as an opportunity to separate herself and to separate herself from the pack. But most importantly, she looked introspectively at herself and saw that the characteristics that I was looking for were in her eyes, the minimum expectations for herself. And they were simple, you know, would you be able to love me and love our God, you know, which, you know, faith is a big part of how we've been able to sustain 17 years of scandal-free, affair-free marriage, you know, it's because of our faith. And when she saw this list, there was only about 5 things on there. Being raised primarily with a single parent, I knew that it was intentional that my wife would be the first woman that I got pregnant because I wanted my children to have the luxury of having both parents in the home. And so when Demetrice saw my list of 5, it was, it was simple for her. And because when you think about, the smiles and the faces on our photos, there's so many faces that are missing. And when I think about that, when Demetrice saw my list, she immediately became a partaker of a promise that God had made me. When I was a child, oftentimes because of the absence of my biological father, I found myself with low self-esteem, and I found myself in very needy, low places at times. And before I asked God for a wife, God made me a promise that he was going to give me a son. And so when I told Demetrice the promise that God made me, she became a partaker in that promise and she embraced it. And so when I told her that, God promised me a son, my son, Trebor Smith Jr., TJ the Prince, AKA the Promise, he was God's promise. He was our 7th and final pregnancy.
Wow.
And so it took every experience that we had gone through for God to be faithful and keep his promise to us. And so when Demetrice accepted the challenge and wanted to be a partaker of the promise that God made me, then I knew then that this was the type of woman that not only could I partner with, but that I could love and I could spend the rest of my life with.
Okay, now hold on, because you completely unloaded a lot. And you actually make me think I need to do rehearsals of this now.
It's heavy.
Okay, but yeah. So because you opened the door, I'm gonna come on in, okay?
Come on.
So let me go back because I'm gonna come up to the promise. So I'm gonna get to the promise.
Yeah.
But you telling me you had slips of paper
all over the house.
Your house.
All over.
With characteristics of the woman that you wanted.
All over the house.
All over the house.
Inside and out.
Okay, so inside and out. Hold on.
Inside and out.
Inside and out. So, okay. All right. Just hold on for a second. You had them as reminders to yourself or as news flashes to who was coming through?
To anyone that came, and reminders to myself. In the book of Habakkuk, it tells you to write the vision and make it plain so that those that read it can run with it. So it was important that, in my circle, my crowd, those that were close to me, that would be visiting or at my home, I wanted them to know what I was looking for. Because now, when you're single, you're straight, you got good credit, you got a job, you don't have baby mama drama. Everybody and their mama think they got somebody to fix you up with. Everybody has got that one person, right? And so I just wanted everyone that knew and anyone that came, by or, whether it was a delivery person or a guest, I wanted them to know that, the place where you're standing is on hallowed ground, but I want you to also know that the person who lives here is separated and set apart, and he's looking for something and someone special.
Okay, now that I love. I love the intentionality that you went into your marriage relationship with. I love it from 2 perspectives because I love how you prepared yourself. I love the standards that you set for yourself and what you wanted to bring to the relationship. Priceless. I love the fact that you weren't afraid to make it known what your expectations were so that there weren't any mixed cues. Love it. I love all of that. The fact that this sister came into the house and saw your list of demands. I hate to call them that, but they was your list of demands.
Like Denise, I had a list of 25, so 5 was.
All right.
Light lifting.
All right. Yeah. You let her off easy if she had 25 for you. What I love about that moment, though, is something that rings through what each of you did, and that was set your expectations for a relationship. because sometimes when it comes to relationships, people haphazardly fall into them. And then when they're in it, they realize that this is not what they want because they didn't set out with the list of 25, in your case, Demetrice, and the list of 5. And, you know, the 5 was like on Billboard for real. I'm surprised you didn't tell me you had a magnet on the side of your car at some point, you know, to advertise. But I think that is beautiful, you know, regardless of the approach, regardless of the sentiment, each of you have prepared in your heart the desire for one another. And I think the blessing in it is that you were able to find it together. And there are a lot of people who are just fumbling in and out of relationships without setting that affection and understanding what they want. And I think that is the key from what you shared. So I agree with you, you know, that when she came and she saw that the list was in the bathroom, in the medicine cabinet, on the dresser, the refrigerator, microwave, and stove, she knew that that's what you wanted, and she understood those expectations, and she rise to the occasion. So you're right. You're right. You knew in that moment. You knew.
Without a doubt. And she started to take the list down. You know, over time, I ended up, and I think the last one to go may have been the one on the bathroom mirror or something. That was probably like the last one to bite the dust, or maybe one of the ones on the outside of the refrigerator. But they, over time, they started to eventually start to disappear. I don't know if it was how intentional or accidental it was, but they started to disappear.
That's beautiful. And I think we all can take a nugget away from that. Now you mentioned that you're approaching 17 years, and congratulations for that. You know, every day in marriage is one that we all work hard for. We all remain committed to. There are demands that are put on us. So 17 years is absolutely commendable. That is a phenomenal accomplishment. And I know when you can get back to jet setting across the world, y'all gonna go on vacation somewhere and celebrate. I know that.
Get ready.
But Demetrice, tell me what that means to you and what you cherish the most.
Oh my goodness. Like it's hard to put it all into words. So 17 years. It's been many ups and downs, you know, throughout this time frame. So of course, Trebor, he can, you know, love of my life, brings me great joy, but then also the ones that's closest to you can, you know, can strike and you know, the words can hurt. So with that being said, you know, we've had our struggles that we've had to deal with. I think like every marriage goes through seasons, but learning to pull together and communicate and work through those seasons has helped us a lot. And then our challenges, you know, that we faced, if we face them together instead of thinking that we're on opposite teams and face them together, I think that has absolutely helped us to pull through and to remain committed to one another.
Absolutely. You know, marriage is something that takes our commitment and work. And so, like I said, you guys getting there, but I love how you called out that it's not always just a skip in the park, right? You know, we have to deal with some real issues, and the real issue or concern or the blessing or as Trebor say, the misery that turned into ministry is what we're here to talk about tonight. Now, that beautiful painting behind you, I think that's the same picture I have to share with everyone so that they can take a look at your family. Is that the same one?
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
And so I want you guys, for me, you know, as you're looking at this picture, I want for you to tell me what you see. You know, I know it's rich in beauty and it's rich in terms of legacy and promise, you know, as you've shared. But I think there's a glimpse of some heartbreak too when you look at this. So Demetrice, help me understand what you see.
Absolutely. And like it's kind of making me a little bit emotional looking at it. But when I see the picture, I definitely see, of course, my husband, who's the love of my life, but then also my 3 little heartbeats that's sitting right there. And it's a love that you don't know that you can experience until you actually have, you know, children of your own. It's like your heart walking around on the outside of your body. And it's unbelievable experience. But what you don't see, even though the picture is rich in its beauty and its glory, and it sees us and showcases us as a family and shows our strength, but what you don't see are the little angels that surround us. And we have 4 angel babies that we've lost in the process, and so you don't see their smiling faces on this picture, but we always remember them. We talk about them. You can't really tell in the photo behind, in the painting behind us, but we have 4 fleur-de-lises with angel wings and in the corner, in each of the corners, and they represent the 4 babies that we've lost. So we always carry them with us. So even though you don't see their smiling faces on the picture, they're always with us in our spirit.
Absolutely. Now, just to connect that to what Trebor said, because he spoke of a promise that God gave him, right? So this gets real deep. He spoke of a promise that God gave him and of a son. He spoke of the fact that your son was number 7.
Number 7.
Like 7 is the number of completion.
It's on all of our logos.
Yeah, that your son was number 7. So this goes really deep,
it's deep.
You know, in the fact that you had the heart, the will, the conviction, the desire to continue on in the face of the loss that you had, to see that promise come to pass is powerful. It's absolutely powerful. Help us understand more.
So for me, I think that's when you know that it was God. When you think about what we experienced, our oldest daughter that's on the photo that you showed, she just turned a teenage. She just turned 13. Yikes. Hurts to even say that, you know, but she just turned 13. But she was actually our 3rd pregnancy, which is why we named her Trinity. We miscarried our first time. Our 2nd pregnancy was our oldest daughter, Tristan, who was born at 25 and 4. She was born at 25 and 4, lived for 6 weeks in the NICU. And so we learned in that experience, the daily toil of the NICU, that without God, you could not only lose your child, but you could lose your mind, because there's something that's not natural about parents burying children. And so when Trinity came along, you know, obviously there are always those that tell you, oh, you guys have been through so much, you should count your blessings. And because I knew what God had promised me, then I had to do everything in my power to show God and to demonstrate to God that I trust him to fulfill his promise to me. And so, you know, when you have those types of experiences, people were telling us, oh, you guys got a beautiful, healthy baby. I know y'all gonna stop now. And in my head, I was like, you know, we ain't stopping because God got a promise to keep here. And, you know, and then my 10-year-old daughter was born after Trinity. But in between our daughter, Taylor, who's 10 years old, and our son, Trebor, who's 7 years old, we had 2 more unfortunate, unexpected outcomes. And one of those times was a tubal pregnancy. Pregnancy number 5 was a tubal. And we lost a tube. My wife, I had to rush her in for emergency surgery. She had lost a lot of blood, and her doctors, in her words, said that if we had waited another hour, things may have been different. But we, you know, so we conceived our last 2 times with 1 tube. And so that's why when you tell me you don't believe in God, that's your business, because I know that there is one. I know he's real. I know he's faithful. And I know that when the book of Philippians talks about he that has begun a good work in you is faithful and will fulfill it and finish it, then I know that to be true, because we didn't look at a sonogram. I was one of those crazy dads though. I started buying Jordans. I started buying basketballs. I started buying everything. I mean, and after our 10-year-old daughter, Taylor, was born, I told my wife, get rid of all the girl stuff. Don't even keep it. You know, we had committed after pregnancy number 6, we decided together that was going to be our last and final attempt. Wow. And whatever God's will was with that pregnancy, we were going to accept it, embrace it, and we were going to continue to enjoy our life and live our life to the fullest. And so we didn't look at a sonogram. We didn't let them tell us what we were having. So all those parents that say, oh, we got to know, no, you don't. I mean, we had been pregnant at this point 7 times. So we knew at the end of the day, all we wanted was a healthy, whole baby. Because we knew what it felt like to leave a hospital without a baby. We knew what it felt like to have these goals and dreams and to leave our baby in the hospital, never to return. We knew that feeling. We knew the heartache and the heartbreak that came with that. So for us, at the end of the day, we wanted just a healthy, whole, normal baby. But we also knew that if God was going to be God, and if his promise to me was actually from him and not me just being ambitious or grandiose in my thinking of what could happen, then we gave him 7 opportunities to show us that he was God. And on 7, which is God's perfect number, the number of completion, the number of fulfillment, the number of the promise for us, God was faithful. Wow. And I'll never forget when our doctor saw my son, she started screaming. Oh. Because she knew what we had gone through. She knew the heartache, she knew the heartbreak, she knew all the trials, and as with anyone, she knew our desires. And so for that, we will forever be grateful for not only our peaks, but certainly our valleys, because it was those experiences that really reconditioned our expectation and channeled our faith unlike anything else that we had experienced.
Wow. Man, that is incredible. I was moved when I heard Demetrice talk about the experience, and I had no visibility to anything that you shared. I was moved when she talked about how this ignited a desire in her to be a midwife and to start serving women who were facing these challenges around childbirth. I was moved when she just read off of the statistics, but I have to tell you, I am completely blown away to know the entire story of the promise and how it has manifested through your willingness to still try in the face of so much pain. Yeah. And I know that just as real as it was for you, Trebor, those are things that Demetrice had to carry. And I'm sure that I could sense the insecurity, the vulnerability, the just how much she had to face within herself to even try again. I hear stories of women with difficulty trying after 1. Yeah. And she had the resolve to try after 4. So Demetrice, I salute you. I honor you. I thank you for your example. I want to hear from you because that could not have been easy. And I know he had to be the best support in the world, right? So now I understand the cooking and the cleaning and all that was up front. I get all of that now. But what you had to carry in that moment, in those moments, was incredible. Help me understand how you took that journey.
It was a difficult journey, needless to say. And I always tell people that it's a journey. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, we don't get to this same space where we are overnight. And so really taking ownership of that and not blaming myself for the losses and for the process, and really kind of seeking to understand what happened. And, as you mentioned before, the statistics are, alarming and saddening and disheartening, to say the least, because Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to experience adverse outcomes and negative outcomes for pregnancy or an even infant and maternal loss. So just taking a look at that and kind of reincorporating it into my own life, like, I am the statistic. Like, this is really happening. It's not like the, the data that I'm reading or learning for school. This is really happening in a part of my life. And like, textbook couldn't fix that for me. Textbook couldn't fix the sadness that I was feeling. Textbook couldn't fix the triggers of like other pregnant women. I was a nurse practitioner dealing with pregnant women as a job. And I was like, how do I face like, dealing with my own clients when I don't want to deal with what I'm going through myself? So it was definitely a journey. I had to take some time off work. And he, was very, very supportive of that. Like, take what you need. Don't let anybody rush you through this process. Nobody can tell you how to grieve. And one of the things that really stuck with me, and I think Tristan may have still even been in the hospital or maybe had just passed, but he told us that God trusted us enough to be parents of angels. And so that's one of the things that really stuck with me. And so even, I would go through my ups and downs and my struggles and, did we make the right decisions? Are we doing right? Like, are we doing something wrong? Why do we keep experiencing this? So a lot of it became a mental mind game. That you play. And so really seeking the help that I needed, like not being afraid to seek that mental help and that, so, that support from your peers and from your family that often want to help. So not being afraid to accept help and to go to mental counseling was huge. I can't be, I'm a great proponent of that because you do carry that guilt, you do carry that weight. And so just to have somebody to kind of, walk you through that and where you can express your feelings and talk about those feelings is a huge thing. And then the support piece is huge as well, because as many people, because like I said, it's affected by 3 to 4 Black women will experience poor outcomes. And so it wasn't until we actually start to experience our own losses and miscarriages that like close family friends and like sister girlfriends were coming like, I had this too. I'm like, what, you did? Like, I never knew. And so it's like so many of us will suffer in silence. And I was like, I remember when I actually went back to work, one of the things, like the first patient that I had when I returned to work had literally experienced the exact same thing that we had just run through, just lost a baby and just having to talk her through. And it was like reliving it all over again for me.
And she was a wreck. It was hard enough for her to get out of the car to go to work that first day back and then to go back and encounter that. Oh gosh.
And so, I am all about being in the moment with people. I cry with patients, I laugh with patients, I share my experiences because I feel that it not only helps me on my healing journey, but it helps them as well. And to be open and honest and transparent about those feelings. If I'm feeling bad and this is a crappy day, like, no, I it wasn't all roses, it wasn't all pretty, but just really telling people about your true feelings and being honest and open about that really helped me along the journey on my healing path. And I believe that it helps other women on the path as well. And those crazy things that you don't expect, like phantom pregnancy, those are real things. Like I remember after we lost Tristan and feeling like fetal movement, still like baby movement. And I'm like, I still feel like I'm pregnant and like thinking that I'm going crazy, but that's a real thing. And so actually telling other women like who experience miscarriage and loss, that these are some things that you can expect to experience or you may experience. And so that they won't be caught off guard by their journey or caught off guard about what they're feeling. So I think that has helped me a long way on my healing journey to share my stories and to help other people.
And when we think about what we've gone through, though, we accepted early on that God didn't trust us with such a heavy burden and a heavy load just for us, because literally immediately afterwards, some of our very close friends and relatives and people that we work with and that we mentor, they started to have unexpected outcomes with pregnancies as well. I think about just 3 young men that are in my network of young men that I partner with, that I mentor. Literally within the next 12 months after we started having some of our challenges, they had miscarriages. And one of my good friends, he and his wife they were pregnant with multiples and they lost them one at a time. And
Mm.
so while we were still grieving the loss of our daughter, we were able to be there with and for them and support them through what was as challenging of a time as anyone could go through. And then from that time, even till now, I mean, it's almost like a badge that we wear because we are regularly sought after because we are so transparent. You know, like Demetrice is very modest as it relates to how she survived that. But I remember the anxiety she had sitting in the car, going back to work that first day back. She was so emotional, but she needed to go back. She wanted to go back, and then to go back and her first patient of that day have that type of outcome. But then, you know, I didn't know the data around Black and brown mothers and the mortality risk with them. But I knew that after we had experienced our first miscarriage, and knowing the emotions that we shared in that office, the day that we found out that she was officially miscarrying, although she knew when we left the house that we were having problems, me and I say my ignorance about some of the science as it relates to pregnancy, I was still very hopefully optimistic, and she knew. And so when we got that news, I knew that whether we got pregnant one more time or 17 more times, I never wanted my wife to have a possibility that she would have to get that news alone and then share it with me. I wanted to be there with her. And so, you know, I say it proudly and humbly at the same time that out of 7 high-risk pregnancies where my wife had to get a cerclage for 3 of our children, extended bed rest, I only missed 2 doctor's appointments in 7 pregnancies. And the 2 doctor's visits that I missed in that time period, my mother accompanied her to those visits. And so one of the things I tell fathers now, go, be there. Don't let them go alone. Be their rock, be there just to support them. Even if you're not, if you don't think you know what's going on, your presence alone means more than you'll ever know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For something this serious as well as anything, that presence is a game changer. You know, Demetrius, I'm thinking of something I know, which was kind of a face head on experience that you had to deal with when your sister was pregnant at the same time, and just the reality of that moment. Because I imagine that many women who are in similar circumstances, while they may not have a patient that has that to deal with, they certainly have family members. So walk us through that experience, because I think that that experience is a real life experience that women who find themselves in this scenario face, whether it's with a family member or a friend. So tell us about that experience you shared with me.
Absolutely. And so, as I mentioned, like, you know, people can become triggers, especially when you're trying to get pregnant or you have problems with infertility or had, you know, poor outcomes. When you look at other people and you're happy for them, but at the same time, you reflect on all of the things that's going on with you. And so it almost becomes an emotional trigger. So pregnant people seeing a happy family, like anything, you know, that would make you think about a pregnancy or a family will become a trigger for you. And so, you know, strangers on the street could be triggers. And so having my sister and I are 22 months apart. So we typically, you know, shared everything together. And so many people thought that we got pregnant at the same time on purpose, but it was not planned. But
Ours was.
look, it wasn't planned for us to get pregnant at the same time. But with that being said, you know, for when we had Tristan at 25 weeks, for her pregnancy to continue to go on to full term, whereas, you know, ours ended, it was very, very tough and a very emotional place to be in. And, you know, we didn't really know how we would handle it ourselves. You know, I remember at the funeral, or even before the funeral, when we first saw each other, like, And I was telling Tree, I was like, I don't even know what to say to her. And he was like, she's your sister, just hug her. And so it was just that awkward tension of being there because I was still very sad for myself. And I could, I knew that she was sad and upset as well. But at the same time, I didn't want her to feel guilty about, her own pregnancy and her own experience because hers went on to full term. And so it was very difficult for me. I had to do a lot of praying, a lot of crying, and a lot of talking, to this one, talking me off of the ledge, so to speak, because that was a very trying time for us. And I think my culminating moment for me was when she actually went to give birth. And so she lived in Florida at the time, and so my initial plans were to go and be with her during the birth, but it was this actually, our due dates were a week apart. So he delivered early. So it would have been Tristan's actual due date. And so I was going through my own emotional, things at the time. So I didn't go to the birth, but I made a ticket to go out there afterwards. And so once I went afterwards, I went with the understanding and I told her, if I get there and emotionally that this is not right for me, then like I'm gonna have to come back home. And so of course she understood that. So my mom and my sister picked me up at the airport. We went back to my sister's home and she was, laying down because she had just had a C-section. My mom, in the meantime, I remember her fixing my nephew's name is London. She fixed his bottle and then she left out of the room. And like, I couldn't even bring myself to look at London at the time because I was like, thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. Like I shouldn't have come, like I should go back home. And so as I'm having these thoughts, like London starts to cry. And so I'm looking like, well, where's my mom? Like she's not even getting a baby. And then she's like out of the room, nowhere to be found. My sister's laying down, but all I see is the baby crying in the little carrier and the bottle is on the table. And I was like, they set me up. Like they set me up. And I go and I was like, well, I guess I could feed him. And so like I get the bottle, I pick up the baby and I go to feed him. And so after I feed him, I lay him on my chest to burp him. And he curled up exactly like Tristan would do when I would hold her in the NICU. And so it was in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, you look just like your cousin did when she would lay on my chest. And so in that moment, I was able to realize that I can still be sad for me and I can still be happy for my sister and love my nephew at the same time and still continue to go through this process. So it was like a light bulb that went off, like you can do this, you can still grieve and you can be on your healing journey and still love at the same time. And so I didn't have to compartmentalize like and have other people be triggers for me. And I can still be happy for other people and not be like, oh no, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but still be happy as I go along my own journey.
Yeah, I would imagine that definitely is a moment you fear, right? Because you don't know how you're gonna respond or react in that moment. And I can only imagine every emotion starting to rise up within you, and you had to choose to be available for him in that moment. And so I am so thankful that you did that. I'm thankful that you had the courage to get the bottle and had the courage to pick up the baby. Now, I don't know if your mom set you up. Moms kind of do that from time to time. So I don't know if she set you up, but your courage is what won out on that day. Your courage, which you showed throughout this entire process, like everything. I hope courage was on that list. I don't know what was on that list of 5, but I hope courage was on that list because she has risen up very strong, in everything that you guys faced. And so, I'm just reflecting back to your introduction where you said she was the tallest timber. And that is proven out of what you've shared today. 100%. So Demetrice, I look, I'll give it up for you, girl, because that is absolutely proven today. So thank you for being courageous. Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Super Crew, I
Talk to me.
had
Talk
no
to me.
idea what Super Crew was all about. But I will tell you, you definitely need to enjoy some capes in this family. Okay.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
Yes, you need capes for everybody. Y'all need to dress up as the Incredibles this
Look,
coming Halloween, okay?
they want the glory, but they don't want the story. I'm just saying, it looks like it's easy because, with God's grace, we make it look that way. But I mean, it's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We got calluses on our knees. We have a very strong prayer life. I mean, and so it's humbling when we look at where we are and what we've gone through to get here.
Absolutely.
I don't, for mothers, their resources are endless.
Mhm.
But for fathers, we have to weep in silence,
Mm.
and we lack the opportunity to truly be vulnerable and transparent. And so for that reason, I have tried to be an example to the many brothers that God has allowed to cross my path and who share some of our stories and these journeys with us, because I know what it's like to have the love of your life, your spouse lay there with a hole in her heart and you can't feel it. Like I know what it feels like to tell my wife Happy Mother's Day for 3 consecutive years without a baby at home.
Mm.
But I also know the pain and the burden of having to bind my wife's breast because she's still lactating with lettuce and wraps so that we can help her to ease the pain. Like I know that emotion, I know the feeling, and I know that, when Mother's Day was coming, I started to dread that day just because even though my mother and my maternal grandmother are still living and I love them endlessly, I knew the pain that my wife had when I would say Happy Mother's Day, and I would buy her Mother's Day gifts, but we didn't have a baby at home.
Mm.
Like there aren't a lot of resources out there for brothers. We share these stories with individuals that need it because you never know who's going through what you're going through or who's headed to where you've been.
Mm. Priceless. Thank you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with us. Now, in this environment, I believe we should build a life that we love without apology. You guys have clearly done that, okay? But I want you to share with us some wisdom. So I always close out with my life, love, in pursuit of happiness questions. The first one is, and I'll ask each of you. So tell me your life wisdom. What would you tell your younger self if you could about life? Demetrice, I'll let you go first.
If I could tell my younger self, about life, it would be, you can still plan, for things, but life is unexpected, and so not to be married to how you're going to get there, but see your end goal and what you want to accomplish, but know that life has its own turns and valleys and things like that you have to go through. So don't give up on the goal, but navigate differently on how you need to get there.
Absolutely, Trebor.
Yeah. So I live every day knowing that to whom much is given, much is required, and understanding that success is a process. And unfortunately, pain is a necessary part of the process.
Mhm.
It is the pain that we go through that prepares us for the moments when we live pain-free and we actually get to enjoy the life that we've dreamed of.
Mm.
And so as much as we've been through, I wouldn't trade it for anything to be where we are right now. Now, it wasn't what I designed, it wasn't how I designed it or planned it, but the pain of our experience was a part of the process, and it didn't destroy us, it developed us.
Amen. I love that. All right, love. What's your love wisdom? What would you tell your younger self if you could? Trebor, we'll start with you.
So what I would say is that love is almost like anything. You get out of it more than you could ever give.
Mm.
So when you sow the types of seeds that you want to reap, you expect to reap a better harvest.
Mm.
I mean, I thought that I was just getting someone special. I didn't know how extraordinary she was until trying times came.
Mm.
And when those times came, I saw that although she's on a 5'2",
3
3 frame, she certainly is a tall timber in the forest of trees because she's a giant amongst many.
That's beautiful. Demetrice, love wisdom. What would you tell your younger self?
Younger self, I would say not to listen to the naysayers. Make that list and follow what's on the list, and don't shortchange yourself, because it is possible. You don't have to take things off the list just because you think that they can't happen or other people don't have them. If that would have happened, I would have never married this one, because people will always say, oh, you can't have someone who doesn't have kids, or, that's impossible to do this or to do that. But if it's on your list and that's what you want, pray about it and stick to the list.
That's good. And then finally, it's about happiness, your happiness wisdom. What would you tell your younger self? I'll start with you, Demetrice.
I would say that you are the narrator of your own story. So do what makes you happy. If it's something that is not working for you, rewrite the story. You don't have to stick to the same script. Do it over.
And close us out, Trebor. Happiness wisdom.
So I teach my kids every day that happiness is about what's happening. And in order for us to achieve what we want to achieve, then we have to be willing to sacrifice like no one else. And so the sacrifices we make today will give us the rewards that we want tomorrow. So we don't play by the rules around here, we make them.
I love that.
We beat our own drum.
I love that. You guys are beautiful. And I just want to close out by just saying that success looks so good on you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your example. Thank you for your story. I'm telling you, I'm closing out tonight feeling a little bit better about knowing the two of y'all, because this has been a very eye-opening, heartwarming, and encouraging story and testimony. So thank you. And please keep living out loud. People need to hear your story. They need to see your victory, and they need to just really feed on all the good stuff that you are willing to share. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you immensely.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night. Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you truly deserve life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Denise Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. Life, love, in the pursuit of happiness, easy to find. Now, if you want more information about my success superpowers, as I'm sure you do, download my free Success Superpowers ebook at DeniseTaylor.live/podcast. And one last thing, always embrace your power and go.